Often we see personal development as a sea of people disagreeing and giving advice that seems to be completely disconnected or even contradictory. But with insights from human development, we can see all of personal development as being arranged in a series of levels that address different levels of our well-being. Today we'll look at 4 of these levels and how to use this framework to help you self-transform. Welcome to the Grey Updraft. You're here with Ross. I make weekly videos with tools for self-transformation, so do subscribe for the latest. So today we're going to look at personal development, and we're going to look at it through the lens of it being a series of levels. And right off the bat here, I want you to think of these levels not so much as stepping stones, but as repeating themes or levels that build on top of each other. What does happen is that at any given time, we tend to focus our efforts and our energy and improve ourselves and improve our lives inside one of these levels. So that's important to keep in mind. But many people, when they hear these kinds of models or theories or ways of looking at human growth or personal development, they see it as stepping stones that they jump and then the previous one gets left behind. It really isn't like that. Let's get straight into the properties of these levels before we actually look at the 4 levels themselves and how to apply them to optimize our self-improvement efforts. So we're going to cover 6 features of the 4 levels, and these are inspired by insights from developmental psychology, spiral dynamics, integral theory, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and so on. Let's get to the first feature of these 4 levels then. This will help us really understand what this model is really saying and what it's not saying, because it's important that you interpret these levels properly. First of all, I've already kind of mentioned this, is that we have a home stage. I'm going to call it a home stage. There are other names for it. I like to say that this is a stage of personal development that is most relevant to us at this time in our life, and it's the one that we usually operate from. This level defines what kind of self-help we identify with and which ones we reject. And often other personal development work just seems like a waste of time. It's like, why would I ever want to do such a practice? Why would I put that habit in place? Why would I read that book? It just seems so irrelevant. Yeah, that is a feature of these levels. Second feature, the strongest indicator of these levels is really not the goals we are pursuing so much as the reason we are pursuing these goals. I want you to keep this in mind, because often we try to define these levels in terms of, the books we're reading, the teachers that we're listening to, the goals that we have in our life, and what's more important is really the motivation behind those goals, behind why we're reading those books, and so on. And you're going to see why when we talk about the 4 levels themselves. But just keep that in mind, not to get too lost in the surface level. You want to look sort of beyond the surface a little bit, under the surface. Great, let's look at the third feature of these levels. Sort of mentioned this, but I want to make this really clear that the stages above our home stage seem alien and irrelevant to us, and we tend to sort of demonize them. So this is actually a really good way of helping you identify which level is your home level, because if you demonize, say, level 3 and 4, there's a good chance that you're in level 2 or level 1, for example. Feature number 4, we're able to access stages below our home stage without them dominating our identity. So the home stage sort of dominates our identity, and the earlier levels are part of it, but they are sort of underneath the surface, so they take a back seat. This is this isn't an ideal world, because really in practice what tends to happen is that people reject capacities, goals, motivations from previous levels, and they don't know how to include them in later levels. And this is a real problem when it comes to personal development, because as you'll see, each of these levels has something really powerful to offer us in terms of our flourishing, in terms of functionally going through life. And yeah, not incorporating these levels can be just a disaster. So keep this in mind. Feature number 5 is that what I was saying is that we often fail to correctly incorporate the lessons that have come before, and this creates dysfunction and blind spots. So a key lesson from this model is to realize that we want to reincorporate aspects of earlier phases that we left behind, and we want to really be honest and identify how that lack of integration is actually jeopardizing our efforts to improve ourselves, because really it could be something more basic than our home level. We might have to go back, so to speak, and mine a little bit so that we can, make the progress that we're looking to make. Great. And number 6, maybe the most important feature of all, and it kind of undergirds all the other features and it undergirds the rest of this video, is that all stages contribute skills and lessons that are crucial to our functioning and well-being. And yeah, we're about to cover the stages in a moment. And I just want you, as you're watching this, is to just run in the back of your mind and just do a little thought experiment, reflect on your life a little bit, and just wonder how this stage contributes to your life, or if you don't really feel identified with it, how it could influence your life in future, who you could become if you were to start living from that stage. Great, so let's get now to the 4 levels themselves, and I've got little names for them. We're going to look at the life goals, the footprints. The footprints are how to see this level in people, how to identify it in the real world and in yourself. Allergies, what are the typical allergies of that level? I've given you a clue in the 6 features as to what the allergies may be in a very broad sense. Teachers at that level, so what famous people or well-known gurus are out there talking about this level of personal development. So let's get right to it. Let's get to level 1, which is the achiever. And I think this is perhaps what people most identify as, or they believe that personal development is this level, or they sort of reduce personal development to this level in their mind, maybe not without not realizing it, but I think this is the case. Let's look at the life goals of the achiever just to get an idea of what the achiever is about. Basically, our life goals here are to improve our own life. And often this is done, if not to others' detriment, to the detriment of others, it's done really just we're not even thinking about other people too much. And this can be an issue, as we'll see. Being a winner, so being number 1, being well known in your field, being seen as a person with status and image and responsibility and power. This is a very typical goal at this stage. Conquering the competition. So modern marketing is very dominated by the achiever level, where it's like a zero-sum game almost. And if we don't win out over the competition, then they're going to win out over us, and it's a battle to the death, essentially. And there might be some truth to that, but this is sort of a dominant mindset. It's not just marketing, it's more like, I need to be better than other people. I need to rise above the crowd. Get rich and to look rich is a very common goal at this level, and yeah, the self-help field is really dominated. Even if you look at the top 40 books on Amazon, a lot of them are to do with wealth and becoming rich, which, could show you just where we're at the moment in our collective human development. That's what a lot of people need, or what a lot of people are striving for. Social status, sort of already mentioned this, but this goes with being rich, looking rich, and being a winner, because the social status thing, especially for rich people, it's sort of associated with possessions, and it's associated with having a yacht, having a house, a big house, having a car of the right brand, like a BMW, a Range Rover, a Jaguar, or a Tesla, something like that. Material possessions, so clothes, ornaments, gadgets, the car, the house. This is all part of the life goals of the achiever. Business success with little attention paid to source of wealth. So what do I mean by this? I mean starting a business that just makes money and it doesn't take into account your well-being or the well-being of other people so much, or the well-being of your clients. It's really, you're building like this money-making machine that just turns over lots of money and it makes you rich. Makes you rich, but and your interest really isn't so much on the actual systemic impact of that. We're going to come back to systemic impact in the later levels. To look sexy, I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek here, but there is a certain sort of image associated with this achiever level. Improve our self-esteem. So often, I think a lot of the reason why people pursue wealth so they just put all their attention on pursuing wealth is because they actually lack self-esteem in a way, and they don't feel comfortable unless they have that kind of image. And so I think a lot of the activity here at level 1 is about improving self-esteem and our own self-worth. Attracting the opposite sex. So I'm kind of not so much talking about wealth here now. I'm just talking about sort of a basic personal development goal, like how to attract the opposite sex. This is kind of, it's got the flavour of the achiever because it's about improving our own life. It's about doing things that serve just ourselves. Working on our mindset is another one. Working on our fears, because often working on our fears is a way to achieve more goals and to bust down those internal obstacles we have that are in our way. Productivity, because productivity is associated again with making goals and being more efficient, achieving, making more money, and skill building. So things like this, attracting the opposite sex, working on your mindset, your fears, productivity, and skill building, it's quite, I don't want to say basic, because if we don't do it, then it's going to infect the rest of our life, and it's going to have issues when we try to do more advanced work. But it's very fundamental, let's say. It's like we're laying the foundations for the rest of our possible achievement or failure. Great, let's look at some of the footprints. So how do we actually know that someone's probably in the achiever level, where they're trying to get things done, make more money, be more productive and efficient, and so on? Well, I like to think the first thing I'll mention is this outward energy. There's like this extroverted, outward, passionate energy. And yeah, just go around looking for that. I think it's very obvious. Always talking about money and success. So again, it sort of comes back to the thing about building a business. It's just a money-making machine. Whenever you start talking about business, it becomes a conversation about money and finances rather than purpose and impact. Very common footprint, or track in the sand, I would say. Focuses on success symbols. So what I mean by that is they focus on the material possessions, they focus on getting more money, they focus on the bank account. Looking up to rich people like Elon Musk, or the Amazon founder, Jeff Bezos, that's his name. Yeah, there tends to be certain role models at this stage, and it's like the success symbol, like someone, for an achiever, someone like Elon Musk is an idol, because he works, I don't know how many hours a day, over 12 hours a day, probably. He sleeps in the factory. He has got $1 billion company. He has a lot of power and a lot of influence. This is very sort of achiever flavored. And yeah, it's look out for the idols that you and other people strive to be like. And this will give you sort of a hint that they might be, well, it gives you a hint as to their level, but people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are just the typical idols of level 1. Judges other people according to wealth and possessions. Yeah, it's like, is your business busy? How much money are you earning? Where do you live? What's your postcode? What car are you driving? This is like it's like life's report card. I love this statement or this phrase from Spiral Dynamics. It's like money is life's report card. And it's like we have these certain criteria of what being a successful human being means, and then we sort of try and tick other people. Well, we tick ourselves on that list. We analyze ourselves using that list, but we also analyze other people. And yeah, this is very common to ask people about their business, how it's going, how much money they're earning, and so on. And this is kind of a vestige of level one. Let's look at some of the allergies of level one. Emotions, because we don't want to get into airy fairy talk. We don't want to talk about we don't want to get into moral debates here. Let's just, it's business, man. It's business. These things happen in business. Ethics can be a big allergy here because ethics are often seen as an obstacle to material success, and often we don't realize that these things can be compatible. They don't have to be diametrically opposed. But yeah, ethics can be an issue, and a lot of the business, modern business is much improved over how human beings used to survive. But yeah, a lot of modern business is plagued by this ethics thing, and a lot of companies don't treat their employees too well. They do things that are damaging to the environment and damaging to, say, third world countries without really showing much concern. And this comes from sort of the level one achiever in my mind. Let's look at some of the teachers then. Talked about the idols a little bit. Tony Robbins is a big one, sort of addressing these basic or fundamental themes. Stephen Covey wrote a really popular book. Robert Greene, I think, to a certain degree, because of his, he talks about mastery, he talks about power, the art of war, this kind of thing. It's sort of about dominating other people and becoming the winner, succeeding. Jordan Peterson, a lot of the time, is sort of operating from this level, although he's a complex character. And Dale Carnegie, who I believe wrote the book about the 7 habits of successful people. So yeah, it's just these teachers who are talking about success and self-esteem and how to make more money. These kinds of teachers are sort of operating from level one. And that helps you just put it in a bit of context. It's not, as I said, it's not a C, it's more like layers. It's like layers of complexity in the self-help field. And yeah, I don't want to put this at the bottom and dismiss it. That's not what I'm trying to do. It's more like layers of complexity, and I've taken insights from developmental psychology to do this. How do we transition then? So what happens? How do we transition from level 1 to level 2? What are sort of the insights? Well, I just want to illustrate this with a story that I heard on a documentary, I think it was, one day, and it's sort of stuck in my mind for all these years. There was a story of a rich banker who was dining on, him and his wife were living the good life. They had boats, houses, you name it. One day they were in a restaurant dining on lobster and champagne, a lovely restaurant with very expensive food and drink. And all of a sudden they just seemed to have like this moment of realization of like, what the fuck were they doing with their life? Like, why am I acquiring all this stuff? Why am I spending all this money on lobster, champagne, the cars and everything else? And what they actually did very quickly was they set aside all those money-making schemes, and they actually went on to start a charity. So they went sort of a transition from just looking after themselves and improving their own life, being achievers, to actually genuine care for other people. And that gives us a really good glimpse into what level 2 is like. Let's look now at a quick summary of stage 1. Great, let's get on to level 2 now, and I'm going to call this the emotional. And you're going to see why in a minute, why it's called the emotional. So we go from level 1, the achiever, to level 2, the emotional. What are some of the life goals here? Well, minimalism, relaxation. So while level 1 is sort of outward focused, very energetic, very like, let's go, let's move things forward. Level 2 is sort of like, no, let's just settle down a bit. Let's just calm down. Let's relax. Let's Let's embrace minimalism. Let's get rid of our possessions, this kind of mindset. Healing trauma and doing therapy is very common at this level. It's more of a turning inward. There's more of an introspective feel. Developing intuition instead of just cold hard logic. We're actually sort of into the airy fairy now. What level 1 thought of as the airy fairy and had sort of a resistance to it. We're actually, that becomes who we are, and we realise that the airy fairy maybe wasn't so airy fairy after all. Living in the present moment. So yeah, this comes into sort of the teachers, which I'll get onto, but living in the present moment, forget your worries, forget about the future, forget about the past. The past is gone, the future isn't here yet. Let's live in the present. Let's appreciate what we have. Let's appreciate nature. Sort of a level 2 thing. Reducing our environmental impact. So whereas level 1 was very kind of, unethical in many ways, here we actually do care. We genuinely care about, say, animals and nature and other people. We want to work less and just be more. This kind of comes into living in the present moment. We try to define our identity free of conventional influences. So often we look back at level 1 and our achievement drives and the fact that we were sort of going with the crowd in terms of trying to pursue this materialistic life, that we look back and we're sort of developing a aversion to it, and we're like, how could I have been so silly? How could I have been so misled? And how could I have been so naive and short-sighted in my goals? Very common, and it's actually a really important step that we need to make so that we can move into level 2. It's like a letting go of the past and a moving forward. However, that can be an issue, and we'll get to what the issues of this stage can be. Here we want to develop our emotional life a bit more, and this comes into the intuition thing. It's often you'll hear listen to your emotions, listen to your feelings, listen to what your heart is telling you. This is a very sort of level 2 endeavor, and it's really common part of the self-help field at the moment. Also, things like introspection and unwiring healthy behaviors. So I can remember myself when I first came into this level. This is very I've sort of incorporated this now so much I don't really realize I'm introspecting a lot of the time. But I remember when I first discovered this, it was like a whole new world for me. I never thought of reflecting on my past behavior and seeing what I'd done wrong and admitting it to myself and then making the pledge to improve myself and be a better person. It never happened before, but it brought a lot of personal growth, and I think it only was able to come in once I sort of moved into this level 2. Great, let's look at the footprints of level 2, and this is sort of like, how do we where do we see this animal in the wild kind of thing? There's a rejection of materialism in modern life. So this comes into sort of the minimalism and living in the present and working less, being more. Not always, and you don't have to develop this kind of allergy, but there is often this rejection of sort of capitalism and achievement. We're into yoga, meditation, and tarot. Because often yoga and meditation are a way to relax for people and a way to feel their body more and get more in touch with their emotions. We advocate intuition and feelings over cold, hard logic. So this comes into the thing about follow your heart, listen to your soul, etc. This is kind of level 2. There's feminine tones here. Level 1 was sort of more of a masculine flavor. It was like, let's go, let's conquer the world, let's get shit done. Whereas level 2 is more like, let's get in touch with our emotions, let's live in the present, let's think about our impact on the world. More of a feminine vibe there. There's also a sort of indignation towards justice. So this is kind of getting a little bit out of self-help, but this is really important. This comes more from the underlying stage of development itself, but there's sort of an indignation towards injustice in the world, towards, say, blacks, gays, women, and so on. And very present in politics and just culture in general at the moment. And it comes from this level. Here we want to get on with everyone. So I've called it the emotional Often we sort of want to develop really strong emotional ties to people, and this can actually become quite suffocating. I found out the hard way. Let's look at the allergies of this stage. Sort of mentioned some of these already, but let's be very clear about them. The previous stage of personal development, of human development, is a huge allergy at this level. As I mentioned, there's an allergy against achievement and modern life and materialism, which is exactly the things that level 1 stands for. There's an allergy to being better than other people, because being better than other people sort of implies that you're not connecting with them, you're trying to one-up them. It's sort of like an allergy there. There's an allergy to division. So, yeah, there's more of a political thing, but there's an allergy to things like war and to, yeah, the sort of dark side of human history. And there's just a sort of allergy to standing out and being different. This is a very communal stage, and it's often its goals aren't really so much about getting ahead, it's more about being with other people and connecting with others. Some of the teachers that are well known at this level: Pablo Coelho. I don't speak Portuguese, so I may not pronounce that well, but he, in his books, he talks a lot about the soul and your destiny and your intuition, and this is sort of level 2 flavors. It's not just like, go out, make money, do this, make some money, get your profit up. No, it's more like, trust in life, get in touch with your feelings, get in touch with your intuition, and so on. Eckhart Tolle, to some degree, is talking from level 2. I think this comes more from his followers because of their own level of development. He's often talking about, how do we become nicer people? How do we not react? How do we live in the present moment? And this kind of thing. I actually don't think Eckhart operates primarily from this level. I think he's really more of a mystic. But yeah, a lot of his stuff is sort of level 2, coming from level 2. Yoga teachers just got this vibe of, living in the present, getting in touch with the body, analysing oneself, and undoing unhealthy habits, and so on. New Age type self-help, a lot of it comes from this level, and it's sort of talking with the language of this level. And Oprah, the Oprahfication of America, it's talking about therapy and emotions and well-being and so on. This is level 2 stuff. Great, let's look now at a summary of level 2 before we move on. Great, so let's move on to level 3 now, and this is called the Centaur. The Centaur. So a centaur, if you're not sure what that is a creature that is half man and half horse. And this, we'll see why that is in a minute. Our life goals here are to self-actualize without harming others in the process. So while level 1 is a bit too selfish, and level 2 is a bit too unselfish, level 3 is starting to balance these, and it's starting to say, look, I can become a better version of myself. I can be successful. I can pursue my dreams and so on. But I'm going to do it in a way that is designed so that other people benefit. And these things are no longer clashing like they often do at level 1. Here we reintegrate all our previous selves. So this is what I'm talking about, the importance of all the levels. This is kind of the level where we actually realize the importance of the other levels. Quite spooky. And we see that really we can't flourish without level 1. We can't flourish without level 2. We can't flourish without level 3. We need to open up, and we need to reincorporate all these lessons that we haven't learned properly. Here we skillfully reintegrate our masculinity after our feminine stage 2. So it's sort of a swing back to the more masculine pole and a more individualistic outlook, but we retain sort of the insights and the lessons from level 2 that are more sort of feminine in nature. Here our integrating our shadow is a big goal. This sort of ties into the sort of the interest in therapy and psychology from level 2, but it also comes from realizing the developmental journey that we've been on, realizing the importance of all the levels that we've come through and that we haven't integrated yet, and seeing that the shadow is a huge, it's like a gold mine for all the things that we haven't integrated within ourselves and that we project onto other people. Here we want to cultivate empathy for all. So whereas level 2 talks about empathy and talks about egalitarianism and accepting everyone, often they don't actually do this, and it becomes quite dysfunctional, and they end up contradicting themselves. Here at level 3, we realize this contradiction. We actually it comes from seeing our own developmental journey as well, because we look at other people and realize that they're on their own journey, and there's just natural empathy. Obviously, of course, we're not perfect creatures, but there is more of an opening and a deeper empathy for the journeys of other people wherever they are in their journey. Here we develop ourselves to be of service to the world and an instrument for change. This is something I got from Susan Cook-Greuter, who's investigates sort of ego development. And yeah, this sort of ties into self-actualizing without harming others in the process or helping others in the process. Here our focus goes beyond sort of emotional connection with people and also just improving our own lot. It combines those two together and says, how can I improve my own lot? But how can I do it in a way that actually lifts other people up? And what does humanity actually need at this point in time? Here we want to play a positive part in human systems. And we're starting to see this in politics and the media and so on. We're starting to see this, people coming in who do have this sort of positive intention there. Let's look at the footprints of the centaur. I think that one of the biggest footprints for me is like the mixture of goals that a centaur would have. It's like, it's hard to put your finger on this person. They're like slippery and chameleon-like, because the financial, the spiritual, the interpersonal, the physical, they all come together. They're no longer seen as these like competing factions in one's life. It's rather like, how can we bring them all together and make something really beautiful, taking the lessons from each one of these, but not getting caught in the trap. So not getting caught in the trap of pure materialistic success, not getting caught in the trap of just being obsessed with the interpersonal and the emotional. How can we incorporate the spiritual as well into our life? And how do we bring all this together? I think this is a really key footprint of level 3, so look out for it in yourself and others. Second footprint is being unselfishly selfish. It's an interesting turn of phrase. What I mean by this is we see our own potential, we see the possibility for ourselves to grow, and we're actively feeding that, but it's tamed by this level 2 concern for other people, this genuine altruism that comes online at level 2. That comes in now and it gets molded, and so we have this sort of unselfishly selfish. It's like, how can I make myself better, but how can I also improve other people at the same time? And yeah, unselfish selfishness. There's a dropping away of fear. Claire Graves really highlighted this, and I think it's really, really relevant to personal development, because often our personal development goals are the things that we want to improve on in our life. The fear that we have around them, it just completely stops us. And I really like this idea that the center level, there's a complete dropping away of fear, because it's like, wow, if we can get rid of this monkey in our back, this weight on our shoulders, what can we achieve without all this fear dragging us down? So look out for that. Are you really fearful? Does fear dominate you? Or are you basically optimistic, and do you trust in yourself and in life? And that is a footprint of level 3. Here we take action in service of the world and others. So look out for, say, entrepreneurs who are deliberately improving the world and they're not just thinking about the bottom line. Maybe not so easy to find entrepreneurs, and sometimes it's difficult because some people who are basically exploring level one, they hide behind an altruistic mask and they sort of, they've got the PR and they've got the marketing and they've got the human resources to pretend that they're doing something genuinely positive for the world when really under the surface there's a lot of nasty stuff there. So it's kind of hard, but maybe look for it in yourself, and that's maybe the easiest way to identify it, is if you are taking action in service of the world and other people while also not forgetting about yourself and also looking after yourself. Level 2 can forget to look after itself a little bit. Some of the allergies of level 3, well, the previous levels can be allergies. So although I'm saying that level 3 is an integrative stage, it tries to bring back all these lessons it hadn't learned before. Yeah, I mean, we're not perfect, and there's definitely an aversion to the sort of airy-fairy fluffiness of stage 2 and the idealism of stage 2. I've noticed this in myself. We have an allergy to a group focus because often this stage 3 has a huge drive to do something in the world, to be of service, to take action in positive endeavors. But the group and the gravity and the force of the group can often sort of put shackles around us. And at level 3, we want to sort of tear these shackles off because we feel like we can have the best impact if we act on our own. I guess as well, although we like to integrate the other stages, the naivety of the other stages can also frustrate us. It's like, how can you see the world in that way? It's so naive, it's so short-sighted. And yeah, this could just be a signpost for further shadow work. It's not necessarily that, it is true that our views are right in a way, but it's also true that the more resistance we have to the other levels, the more that we need to integrate them. But it does come from a genuine realization that these stages have pros and cons and that we can finally sort of see them in a deeper way. And it can be frustrating to see others who are completely overtaken by a previous level. It's like, come on, how can you be so naive? That can happen. Some of the teachers and say organizations that are working from this level, I would say the whole integral movement, like Integral Life and Ken Wilber and all this, very level 3 stuff, even pushing into further levels. But yeah, it's talking a lot about integration. It's about teaching people the stages of development and having them integrate them in a functional way in their own life. It's very level 3. Also, Leo Gura, I would say, the well-known Leo Gura is very level 3, although that would be an oversimplification, but he certainly has a handle on that stuff. Great, let's look at a summary of level 3 before moving on. Great, so we're on to level 4, which is the self-transcendent. What are our life goals here? Our life goals here are basically to transcend our sense of separate identity and to discover our transpersonal self. So all of the previous stages are about self on various levels, but it's about exploring the self. Here we're actually starting to see that, wait, maybe I'm not the person I always thought I was. Maybe I am not this thing, this person, and there is more to me than this. This is when we start to get into real spirituality and real spiritual work. We start to work through our baggage as well in a very deep way and start to refine ourselves to be better people and to be of service. So I've talked about being of service before, but here I think there's this real purity and a real refinement that comes online. Of course, it's not a permanent thing, but that's our target. That's what we're striving towards, is to see beyond our egotistical functioning and actually refine self so that we are primarily working for others, but not in this sort of needy, idealistic level 2 way, in a way that empowers other people. Here we want to embody God. We want to embody selflessness. We want to be truth rather than think truth. We want to know truth directly, not just think about truth. Here we're moving towards service to and love to one and all. And here we want to transform the experience of our body. I think that's a really important feature of it, like true yoga and trauma healing, energy work, and this kind of thing can be level 4 because it's about deep spiritual self-transformation and helping us to go beyond the sense of separate identity that we have. What are some of the footprints? Things like psychedelics can come in here. References to the nature of ultimate reality, references to God, references to all religions being essentially the same and to referring to very similar experiences or a similar process. There's also this vibe of being more alive and more dead at the same time. I'm not going to try and explain that because I can't explain it. You just have to look out for it. And yeah, look out for it in the teachers I'm going to mention. There's just like, they seem to be more human than the rest of us, but also less human, and they're sort of, they defy what we would call normal in service of creating a better world and refining themselves. And this is a very visible level. Like it might sound like it's a bit out there and a bit crazy, but it's really not. This is there, and I'm going to talk about the teachers in a minute. Some very well-known teachers here. What are some of the allergies of this level? So it might sound like this level is very pure and perfect in all of this, but you know, there are allergies here. Things like thought and thinking and rationality. That can be a bit of an allergy because we see it as being something that the earlier levels engage in and that we're getting beyond. There can be an allergy to all the previous levels here, just like there can at level 2 and 3, because we can see the naivety. We can even see the naivety of belief of the self and of this rigid identity that we have. And this can be, I suppose it can sort of be heartbreaking, but it can also just be a shadow issue where we haven't integrated our real needs to exist as a person and we project that onto the world. There can be a frustration with the state of the world because in a sense we realize that the state of the world is a function of people's lack of self-transcendence. And this can be a dominant view at this level. I've certainly had a lot of spiritual teachers talking in this way. What are some of the teachers that are at this level? Well, Sri Aurobindo, maybe not so well known. He was an Indian yogi who lived decades ago, but he is pretty popular among certain circles and he tends to write and teach from this stage. Ken Wilber, a good chunk of his work is transpersonal, and it's trying to get us to smash our separate sense of identity into smithereens. Rupert Spira, who seems to be gaining more and more popularity, he's a non-duality teacher. And yeah, look out for the footprints in him. I think he's a very good example. Eckhart Tolle, as I mentioned, he's in this level definitely. You know, it's about profound spiritual transformation and refining ourselves. Peter Ralston, well-known author and does conferences and retreats and so on, is into contemplation work. That's like his whole thing. And Shinzen Young, quite a well-known meditation teacher, but it's not just meditation, it's like his vibe and his aspiration for the people he teaches, his students they're touching on sort of transpersonal, selfless elements. Great, so let's look at a little summary of the final stage before we get onto some parting tips. Great, so we've looked at each of the 4 stages in some detail here, and I just want to leave some parting advice for you. First of all is to not skip ahead. So try not to skip ahead and say, I'm level 4, I'm level 3 because of this, this, and this. It's nice to identify these levels in yourself if it's genuine, they're genuinely there. But it's not about sticking a label on yourself and giving yourself a pat on the back and winning the race. It's not about that. And if you're doing that, the chances are that you're actually probably not at these higher levels. I know I don't want to be too harsh here, but it's the truth. Really what we want to do, this is a second tip, is to integrate as much as possible. So rather than asking, how can I run up the ladder? How can I climb the ladder more quickly? We really ask, we look very deeply at our lives. We look at these levels, we look at the features, and we say, do I really understand this level? Have I really embodied this level? Or am I just tricking myself? And have I actually got a huge allergy to this level that I'm not seeing? And the third tip is to develop an internal Geiger counter. What do I mean? Well, a Geiger counter, when there's radiation nearby, it starts ticking and it starts going di-di-di-di-di, and it protects you. There's a similar thing going on here with our shadow and our allergies, because what happens in the body when we have something that we are resistant to, we hear it or whatever, we're interacting with someone, we have this sort of visceral reaction in our body, and it's like this internal fizzing or this internal reaction. And yeah, develop a really strong Geiger counter for that. And if you notice it, say you're allergic to stage 1, you're allergic to materialism, to making money, to successful people, really become attuned to that and make sure that you take the steps to begin integrating all of that stuff, because I can guarantee that rejection of that stuff, I'm not saying you have to become a millionaire, but I'm saying if you go around life with this huge allergy to all that, it's going to come back and bite you. It might not bite your financial life, but it'll bite how you interact with people. It'll affect how you see the world. It'll affect how you see your own journey. So develop this internal Geiger counter that detects all these allergies and these just areas where you're not integrating all these lessons. Great. That's it for today. I'd like you to leave me a comment telling me what your biggest allergies are and where you think, which level these are coming from. Because as I see it, these are a huge issue in growth, and a lot of people miss these out, especially when they start getting beyond level 1. Even at level 1, it can be an issue though. And to help you do this, look for the level that you have a visceral hatred for, and then come and tell me about it in the comments. Make sure to subscribe for the latest video. Make sure to subscribe for the latest videos and come visit my site for a course on the levels of human development and tons of free articles. Take care and see you soon.